What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants are about to begin mandatory minicamp. Many of the teams around the league have begun their minicamps. The Giants will be getting that started this week. And as we look ahead to the minicamp and look even further ahead to training camp, there's a few position battles on the Giants roster that will be taking place this summer that we think are worth keeping an eye on. So we're going to go ahead and dive into 3 position battles that we think are going to be really essential for the New York Giants this summer in today's episode. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what is the first position battle that you are taking a look at this summer?
I'm doing great, man. And look, the first position battle that I'm looking at is the slot cornerback one. And that's going to be a big kind of situation for the Giants to delve into and figure out who their starter is going to be. You know, you have a couple options there. You have Aaron Robinson coming back from injury. You have Cordell Flott, and you have Darnell Holmes. I think right now Cordell Flott probably leads the pack in terms of the slight advantage because he is a Joe Shane, Brian Dable draft selection. Obviously, last year out of LSU. Undersized last season. I think that maybe he worked a lot this offseason on developing his muscle mass and maybe helping in that regard to get a little bit stronger, because I am worried about Cordell Flott in the run game. He's so small and so thin. I just don't necessarily trust him entirely to hold up and stay healthy, you know, going up against those running backs, getting into the mix there. So I think that's going to be a big portion of his game where he has to improve and has to get better in terms of just physical size. So he'll definitely be in the weight room, definitely be getting his calories in, but that's going to be a big question for me going into training camp, obviously, and preseason. But Aaron Robinson, I think he's kind of my dark horse sleeper there. I think that he could win that starting slot job. When we've seen him healthy, he's been solid. Like, he's been a good player. I wouldn't say like above average, but maybe he's been an average player. It's over a small sample size, obviously, but he's physical against the run. He's decent in man coverage. I think that he could low-key be a sleeper to win that starting slot job. That's where he played at UCF during his collegiate days. Obviously, they wanted to transition him over to the boundary. So maybe they move him back after drafting Deonte Banks, and they kind of make this an open position battle. And then, of course, you have Darnell Holmes. And Darnell Holmes, in my opinion, is probably the least likely to win this job, mainly because I think he's going to be a salary cap cut unless they convince him to take a big cap cut in general, because the Giants can save a pretty substantial amount of money from releasing him. And you know, obviously, we could use every penny we can get in case we have to go out and actually improve a different position. By cutting Darnay, we could save $2.74 million. That's a pretty nice chunk of change. You could go out and get a veteran pass rusher to add depth to our offensive line, or rather outside linebacker core. Maybe you go out and get a different position, maybe some more cornerback depth on the outside. But Darnay Holmes, I think, maybe following a Darius Slayton model here, where the Giants basically said to Slayton last year, we're going to cut you, or you're going to take a big pay cut and bet on yourself. And that's kind of what Joe Shane's been doing to a lot of these players. So I would not be surprised unless Darnell Holmes has a ridiculous camp and he forces them to make the decision of keeping him on board for his current price tag. I think they're going to say, you know what, like Darnay, like Cordell Flott or Aaron Robinson, cheaper, probably going to be our starter there. I think that ultimately they're going to say to him, you know what, you take a pay cut or we're going to have to cut you. I think he's ultimately going to end up taking a pay cut and betting on himself because the Giants don't have a starter there. And I think that's ultimately for a player like him who, you know, is in kind of need of opportunities. This is the best place to be. There's opportunities to be had. He's been here for a long time. He knows the system. He knows the scheme. This is the best chance for him to succeed, in my opinion. So I think he'll take the pay cut like Darius Slayton, bet on himself, and maybe leverage that into a better deal next year in free agency. But what are your thoughts on the slot cornerback position? I think Aaron Robinson, low-key, sleeper for me, I think. But Cordell Flott, I think right now has the advantage given that he is a Joe Shane, Brian Dable draft pick.
Yeah, I think that gives Flott an advantage, but I also wouldn't sleep on either of the other two guys that you mentioned. Aaron Robinson, I think, has a chance here. His physicality that he brings to the game, he plays really well in run defense. That's something that stood out on his film with UCF. But I do think that Darnay Holmes has a chance to maintain his spot on the roster. Now, I know when you look at Darnay Holmes, he is a cut candidate because releasing him saves the Giants $2.7 million in cap space, and that's a pretty significant amount to free up here at this point in the offseason. You know, when you're talking June, July, freeing up that much money, that's quite a lot. That can get you pretty far in terms of adding reinforcements for the upcoming regular season. However, I like Holmes. I think that he's a fighter. I think that he's scrappy, and I don't think he's as bad in coverage as most people make him out to be. Plus, he does add quite a bit in the running game in my eyes. Again, another one of those undersized guys. Doesn't really have the height, doesn't really have the length, but he does have that scrappiness and that appeal in the running game and the ability to cover any slot cornerback. He's fast. I think that he's got good speed and good quickness, and I think that you give him a little bit more coaching with Wink Martindale, I do believe that Darnell Holmes could turn things around. However, if I had to boil it down to two candidates, I do think it comes down to Flott and Robinson just because of the potential cap savings of Darnell Holmes. And when you look at Aaron Robinson, those injuries are a concern. And that's where I lean towards Cordell Flott. Now, Flott dealt with his own injuries last season. He is really skinny, so maybe injuries will continue to come up. And honestly, maybe that's one of the reasons that Aaron Robinson has continued to get injured. He's also one of those skinnier, lankier cornerbacks. So the Giants clearly looking in one direction for that slot cornerback role, finding these skinny, lanky guys here. But ultimately, Cordell Flott is my pick for that job. Same thought process as you, Alex. He is a pick from Joe Schoen. He's a pick from Brian Daboll, Wink Martindale. That's their guy, and they're clearly developing him in that slot position. When he was drafted, it was, is he going to play on the outside or is he going to play in the slot? Well, since day one, he's been practicing in the slot. The Giants clearly see something worth developing him in that position. So I do think all summer long, we're going to hear a lot about Flott playing in the slot, hopefully playing his way into the starting lineup. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see if he can win that starting job from some of these other more established veterans. But I'm banking on Flott, young talent. That's what I want to see here. I think that Cordell Flott made a tremendously big play against the Minnesota Vikings in the postseason that we should not forget about. He was on the field for one snapping out, one pass breakup. It was a clutch play, and a play like that, I think that shows the mentality of Cordell Flott. Just to go in there on a moment's notice and make that big of a play, that's what the New York Giants are looking for. Guys who rise to the occasion, and Cordell Flott is one of those guys. So hopefully he continues to develop and does steal that starting job and continues to rise to the occasion. But let's dive into that second positional battle that we're looking at this summer. This one also on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker 2. Now, we know that the New York Giants have their starting linebacker solidified, Bobby Okereke, friend of the channel. We interviewed him last month, had a lot of fun. If you haven't seen that, go ahead, check it out on the channel. Just search Bobby Okereke Fireside Giants interview. But he gave us a lot of insight on what he's bringing to the team. But behind him, there is a pretty big question mark. LB2, who's going to steal the starting job? Is it going to go to the veteran in Jarrad Davis, or is it going to go to one of these second-year guys in Darian Beavers or Micah McFadden? Now, Micah McFadden didn't have the best rookie season last year. 5th-round pick, had his good moments, but had a lot of struggles. And when you look at his career to this point, the rookie season plus his collegiate career, there's one thing that we do know about Micah McFadden. He can pass rush. He can pass rush really well, get after the quarterback, and he is a Wink Martindale fit to a T. He's one of those linebackers that knows how to get in the face of the quarterback. So when I'm looking at this upcoming 2023 season, yes, he struggled as a rookie, but I think that Micah McFadden is going to be the LB2 behind Bobby Okereke, and I think that the addition of Bobby Okereke should make McFadden a much better player. Okereke can be your do-it-all linebacker, your sideline, the sideline guy who plays well in coverage and also defends the run, and McFadden can be that complementary piece who also is a really good specialized pass rusher. So that's what I'm looking at for this LB2 spot. But Alex, I know that you're really high on Darian Beavers, and maybe you have some thoughts on Jarrad Davis as well, but overall, what are you thinking for that LB2 spot this offseason?
Look, right now I'm leaning towards Micah McFadden, mainly because he's the only one of between him and Beavers that has NFL experience. Obviously, like Jarrad Davis is a reserve. I don't factor him in as a starter because we picked him up last year. He's awful in coverage. Like if you saw him in coverage last year, you know that he cannot be trusted. Not to say that McFadden or Beavers can, but right now McFadden has the advantage simply because, well, he was a 5th-round pick compared to Beavers being a 6th-round pick. And I ultimately I do feel as though what Wink Martindale said, you kind of referenced it. He said he's improved a lot, and I think that goes a long way toward proving that he should be starting. Micah McFadden is a good tackler. He's a good run stopper. He has good vision, and he rushes the passer well. You know, he had 6 pressures last year, 2 sacks, and 4 quarterback hurries. So if he can rush the passer from that LB2 spot, the inside linebacker role, and he can stop the run adequately, he's fearless. Like he will get into the box. He will get into the mix. He will plug those gaps, and you know he's very physical. He's good straight line speed. He's not very agile, right? He doesn't have great horizontal horizontal quickness, but his vertical speed is very solid. He can get north to south very nicely. But you're asking Bobby Okereke to be more of that agile guy, kind of read the defense, read the offense, see exactly where to be, and use that athleticism to his advantage. But right now, I'm looking at Micah McFadden. I think he ends up winning that starting LB2 job. And look, the truth is, I think that's totally fine because we have a legit LB1 in Bobby Okereke now, which is a very good thing for the Giants. I mean, he's better than Blake Martinez, guys. Like, this is the best linebacker we've had in maybe a decade. So it's pretty exciting in my opinion. In terms of on paper, like he has that much potential and he's in his prime. So I'm excited to see that. Blake Martinez is kind of heading towards the end of his prime. Obviously, he's retired now, year moved after, the ACL tear. So I kind of feel like Okereke is going to be transformative of this defense. And Micah McFadden being a second-year player with his qualities, there's a lot to like about him. I think in coverage, certainly a little bit of a liability. But Okereke, he even said it himself. He prides himself on his ability to cover. And I think that's going to stand out a lot for the Giants. They're going to ask these guys to do a lot. Micah McFadden's going to blitz. Okereke is going to blitz. McFadden will stop the run. Okereke will drop back into coverage. They're going to be getting really exciting and really creative with how they use these guys because of their talents and how aggressive they are. But in my opinion, I'm looking at McFadden as the potential starter here. I imagine you're kind of in the same boat. And Beavers, and for what it's worth, Beavers, I'm not leaving him out of the equation. I think that he could be a very solid player, but he has to go through his rookie season right now. You know what I mean? Like, he's essentially a rookie. He's not the most athletically gifted linebacker, but he has ridiculous vision. You saw what he can do. He's really good IQ, and he can be in the right place at the right time. I think he could be a really good backup for this team as a rookie. But I'm favoring McFadden at this point in time.
As am I, but I will say Beavers is going to be on the field a lot, in my opinion, in those heavy packages against the run. Third and short, fourth and short, third and goal, fourth and goal, where that the offense is going to be running it right up the gut. That's where you want one of those big, brawny, meaty linebackers like Darian Beavers. Again, you mentioned it. Lack of athleticism there. Not a guy you want to put out on an island in coverage. You don't necessarily want him tracking down any tight ends or running backs. However, I think that Beavers does have that strength, that pure physicality, and the width to just plug holes in the running game, shoot some gaps, and make some big-time tackles for loss against the run and short yardage situations. So I do think he has a role on this defense. I think he will be on the field. But to be the full-time LB2 behind Okereke, I don't think Beavers is going to steal that role. I think McFadden is going to get that role. Wink Martindale said that he's gotten so much better. It's noticeable this offseason. And when Wink Martindale's saying that this early on in the offseason progress about a player, I think you have to take a little bit of notice to that and listen to that because Martindale is the one running the show at the end of the day. So Micah McFadden is going to be my pick for LB2. Again, don't sleep on Darian Beavers. Still think he's going to be a solid contributor for the Giants defense this year, just not in a starting capacity. But let's flip over to the offensive side of the ball for our third and final positional battle. And this one's kind of obvious. It's left guard. We've been talking about this for 7 years now, I think, Alex. It's been a while. The Giants have not had this left guard position straightened out for a very long time. And for the last several years, there's been a position battle at that spot every single offseason, whether it's Shane Lemieux battling it out with whoever else is there. This offseason, Shane Lemieux will be battling that again. He won the job the last 2 years, but got injured and didn't get to really explore the job and take the job on throughout the regular season, which is unfortunate. Now, this season, Shane Lemieux once again battling with Ben Bredesen this time and also Joshua Ezeudu. I think that Ben Bredesen is going to take that starting job. He's got the experience. When he was on the field last year, he wasn't bad by any means. He was a pretty solid player. Now, no, he wasn't an all-pro, Pro Bowl level guard. He wasn't the quality starter that the Giants are looking for, but he was serviceable. He was good enough to get by with in the NFL at the left guard position. So I think that Ben Bredesen wins the starting job, but don't sleep on Joshua Ezeudu. The Giants did draft him in the third round. Joe Schoen, this regime, when we see them select players in the third round, we should be expecting that these guys will be starters within the first few seasons of their career. They clearly have high expectations for Joshua Ezeudu, and they want to see him healthy, and they want to see him compete and go out there and start some football games. So I would not be shocked if he is given the starting job just to see if he can handle it in year two. Again, last season, we saw a lot of Ezeudu. He was on the field for a good amount of time, just never in a starting capacity, in a rotational capacity. The Giants were working him in, working him onto the field, rotating him in with other left guards, Nick Gates, Ben Bredesen being two of the guys. But again, Ben Bredesen has the experience. He's a solid enough player to get by with and start 17 games with. So I think he opens the season as a starter. But again, don't sleep on Joshua Zito. I think that he could take over the starting role by midway through the season. The Giants clearly want to get him in the starting lineup. So if he's starting to show signs of development, he's going to make his way into the starting lineup. That's my take on Joshua Zito. Again, maybe not ready for week 1, but by week 8, let's see. I think he could be ready to take on the starting role a little bit through the regular season. But Alex, when you're looking at this position battle, I assume Shane Lemieux is not necessarily in the equation for you anymore, but when you're taking a look at Ben Bredesen and Joshua Zito, who do you think ultimately wins that starting job once we get over to September and see week 1?
So in my opinion, I feel as though Ben Bredesen probably has the leverage and the advantage in this particular instance because, Joshua Zito didn't play a whole lot during his rookie season. Similar to kind of Darian Beavers, but a lot more action. Obviously, he actually did get on the field for a substantial amount of snaps. But the neck injury, really derailed him. I personally feel like Ben Bredesen's been pretty solid when he's been on the football field, and he's been a little bit unreliable as well. I know he did have an injury of his own last season. I think it was maybe another MCL strain or something like that. But I think that this is going to be a good, fun position battle to watch because another draft pick versus another kind of supplementary piece that the Giants brought in, just hoping to get any value out of. Ben Bredesen ended up being a decent piece. He can also play center, but obviously you have JMS there now, so no need for that. But I do think that Ben Bredesen, Josh Zito, that is going to be a really fun position battle because it could go either way. I mean, Bredesen's fine, but Josh Zito is a draft pick that we have high hopes for. Really good feet, really good hands. I think that ultimately he just needs to develop more pass blocking prowess. He's a good run blocker. He's fast. He can get to the second level. He just needs more experience. I think that's really what it comes down to when it comes to Josh Zito. He just needs more time, more playing time, more experience. So if the Giants view him as a long-term solution, maybe they're just willing for him to struggle for a little while because he needs the action. I think that's what he just essentially needs that experience to get better. I don't think he's going to get better behind the scenes like that. I think he needs to be on the football field playing meaningful snaps to develop. But the other side of the argument is you got to protect Daniel Jones. And if you want to protect Daniel Jones, you got to have the best player available in the offensive line at all times, which could end up being Ben Bredesen because, based on his numbers, his stats, and his experience, he obviously has leverage in all of those categories. So it could go either way. That's going to be one that I'm really looking forward to because I think that the other ones we've discussed, I feel like we kind of have a hold on who will start, or at least the position battle, a little bit of a more knowledge on it. But this one, I really could see it going either way. But I'm definitely excited to watch it because it's going to be fun. This offensive line desperately needs to protect Daniel Jones. We talked about the explosive plays yesterday. If the Giants want to take big leaps forward in that category, it's going to come down to the offensive line, and most notably Evan Neal at right tackle, in my opinion.
Yeah, listen, the tackles are everything for the New York Giants offensive line, of course, with Andrew Thomas, second-team All-Pro this past season. I'm expecting him to get even better this upcoming year. I think he could go for first-team All-Pro at the very least, and just continue to get better and better each year. Andrew Thomas has done that throughout his career. He's gotten better every single season, so no reason to expect that to stop now just because he's an All-Pro. And again, Evan Neal entering year 2. He's made a lot of changes to his game this offseason, working with Willie Anderson, fixing his stance, and he looks like he's ready for this upcoming year, and I'm expecting a big jump from him. John Michael Schmitz, big upgrade at center. Glowinski, you can get by with him. And again, I think this position battle left guard is very interesting. I'm intrigued by it, but ultimately I think Ben Bredesen takes it week 1, and we'll see if Joshua Zito is able to take over midway through the regular season. Hopefully he can. Again, young guy, 3rd-round draft pick. The Giants have high expectations for him, so I do believe that eventually they're going to force him into the starting lineup and see if it's something that he can handle. But that pretty much wraps this one up with our 3 position battles that we're taking a close look at this offseason, this summer, leading into the regular season for the New York Giants. Make sure to comment your thoughts on the topic and let us know which battles maybe we missed or what your thoughts are on these specific battles that we did discuss down below in the comment section. But without further ado, make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. We will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.